Hello, my name is Emil Brix. I'm the director of the Diplomatische Akademie in Vienna.
What is diplomacy? While there are numerous definitions, we believe that diplomacy goes beyond theoretical explanations. And to truly understand diplomacy, we turn to the memoirs of the experts. Today, we are honored to be with Ambassador Brix, a former Austrian diplomat, and thank you that you took your time for us.
It's a pleasure for me.
Ambassador, to kick off, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Vienna, and I'm an Austrian by citizenship, but a very typical Austrian. The family comes from everywhere around Austria, so partly from the Czech Republic, partly from Croatia, from Hungary. So I'm born and bred Viennese.
Did you have a political affiliation while your studies at the University of Vienna?
I did not. I was not active in the field of politics during my student days, but I became active politically afterwards. Because I felt simply that Austria at that time, that was the 1980s, early 1980s, was a very stifled, I would even call a country without enough wind in the sails. So I felt it's necessary to be active as a civil society participant also in politics.
And is it the reason you decided to pursue a diplomatic career?
No. My diplomatic career started actually with two coincidences. The first one was that my doctoral father at the University of Vienna recommended that I should not go for the career at the university, but become a diplomat. He said, an ambassador. He said, there are in Austria more than 1,000 university professors, but in Vienna and Austria we have only 100 ambassadors, so that's a much better career path. And I know why he said that, because he was also at the beginning of his university career a diplomat in the Austrian service before he went for university. So this was the beginning. But then I was on leave actually as a diplomat for quite a long time for political positions. And the second coincidence was, a very lucky one, was the end of the Iron Curtain. It was the year 1989, 1990, when there was a change also in the Austrian government. And the then Austrian foreign minister asked me whether I would help in the transition period when communism ended in the country Poland. And I was sent to Krakow to work on transition in this post-communist country.
Speaking about the transition, I believe that you faced some challenges from this communist system to a new democratic system in Poland. Do you recall some memories of your time back there?
Well, when you come into a country which is in disarray, where because it's a regime change, a real regime change, you face a lot of practical problems when you're a diplomat. So it started with finding offices, it started with finding a resident, it started with finding the right personnel in Poland. It started actually even in making sure that I've got furniture for my office, and I remember going with my then secretary through the city of Krakow because I found a carpet somewhere in one of the stores, and there was no taxi at that time available. Very transitional period, so we carried this big carpet through the city center of Krakow. But these practical issues can come up when you are in a situation where you have to start something new. That was very typical. And then it was about helping the Poles to get a new democratic regime working. In my case, on the regional level in the city of Krakow. And it meant a lot of transition, all the things that communists destroyed in the structures had to be rebuilt, modernized, found again. I was helping to find the old maps and constitutional rights of the free city of Krakow in the Habsburg times. middle of the 19th century to help the new vice mayor of Krakow to reorganize the districts of Krakow for the 21st century, actually.
You once told us the story about someone who gifted you something when you were in Poland.
That was a strange story, but also very typical, I think, what is the profession of a diplomat. One day, an old peasant, Polish peasant from Upper Silesia, came with a huge parcel. And he said, I want to show you something. And then he rolled out suddenly a big picture of what he called the Emperor Francis Joseph, the famous Austrian Emperor Francis Joseph. And I looked at the painting and I realized immediately that it was not Francis Joseph, but it was the German Emperor Wilhelm I. But this peasant told me that he had kept the Austrian emperor through all the communist time, and now before he dies, he wanted to live in an Austrian surrounding, coming from free Poland. So what should I do? I did not tell him that it was not Wilhelm I. It was Wilhelm I, but not the Emperor Francis Joseph, and he left with a smile on his face.
So we can call that strategic communication, maybe.
Strategic communication, or I think one of the elements where the aspect of truth can become relative in such a situation. Yeah. If it's something about peace and war, diplomats don't do this thing. But if it's such a thing where it's very, very personal, very emotional also, then I think it's acceptable and it was the right decision.
Moving forward, Mr. Ambassador, while doing my research, I got one article with the title From the Queen to Putin. And there it mentions that you were the only Austrian invited to the royal wedding. And speaking about the royal wedding, I'm thinking about etiquette and diplomatic protocol. So my question would be, did you get briefed on this occasion, or was it a challenge? Did you face some misunderstandings?
This was a very interesting situation because I did not expect that I would be the only Austrian invited to the wedding of Kate and William in Westminster Abbey, but that was the case. And in the United Kingdom, these sort of things, you always need to have a protocol, a very strict protocol. So I had to make sure that I have a morning coat for this occasion because it was before noon. Secondly, I had to make sure that I know where to enter, how to enter, what the security situation was. It took days to prepare this. And secondly, the problem was that media in Austria got interested. Not only interested what I said about the marriage, but also what I wear even. So they were sending photographs from Austrian newspapers and magazines to make a photograph when I leave my home this morning, and they were even asking me about the color of my tie. So much about etiquette. I think the only thing I remember and I'm really proud of is the seat that I got in Westminster Abbey was directly above the grave of Charles Dickens.
Now let's turn our attention to a country that might not evoke thoughts about etiquette or protocol, but still it's in your career. You spent 2 years, almost 2 years in Moscow. And especially after the military intervention to Ukraine in 2021, Mr. Putin is portrayed as a very controversial figure in Western media and as someone who is the sole decision maker in Russia. Do you remember him as a person like that? Was he always like that?
From my personal recollections of meetings with Mr. Putin, I always had the impression that he is the one who calls the cards, who makes the decisions. And not only does he make the decisions, but he will go as far in realizing his objectives as his counterpart allows. So I never thought any moment that it's a good idea to try to convince him of a different opinion. And it is very strange if you have a vis-a-vis where you feel that whatever you say, he will stick to his position if it's possible and his power allows him to do so. So, from my point of view, he did not change in these times, and even what he's doing now is not different from what he did when I was in Moscow in the years after the Maidan, actually. And I started, and that was the beginning where I immediately felt it. I started with Boris Nemtsov being killed, quite in front of the hotel where I stayed at that time, on the walls of the Kremlin. So I got from my first days the impression I know in which country I am at the moment.
Who were then the main political actors you negotiated with or you talked to, if Putin was back then also the only one decision maker?
Well, if you know how the hierarchy works, then you can talk to a lot of other people in the field of foreign policy, in my case, because they know what the position of Russia is, they know what Putin expects, and they do not deviate from this line. So the European Union ambassadors, had many meetings with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, and it was very clear he was speaking like from the horse's mouth, whatever his master wanted him to say. Very professional, but on the other hand, it was a very cold impression you get in such a position where all your counterparts have a script which they follow line by line.
Thank you, Ambassador. I want to move on a bit more personal questions, if you allow me. And the first one is, while doing some research before this interview, I counted over 200 articles or also books you've written. And interestingly, you have been able to maintain a writing career with your diplomatic career. And I'm wondering, how did you manage that?
Passion for writing and passion for history. Why did I start my studies of history? I started because I felt that Vienna had a history of creativity before the First World War, which should be used for the present time. So I've started writing about Vienna 1900, about people from Wittgenstein to Sigmund Freud, and this passion for making use of history to understand what are the possibilities in the present and in the future, that kept with me all my life so far. And that meant that I transformed it into writing about issues like Central Europe as a political project. And I wrote together with a friend already before the end of the Cold War a book called Project Central Europe, and I continued working along this line academically, but also in sort of political passion until today, actually, because I think in the given situation today, very important to understand why in the Western Ukraine there is also a tradition that has to do with the pluralistic past of the Habsburg monarchy, because this Galicia, this part of Ukraine, the Western Ukraine, was part of the Habsburg monarchy. It was part of this plurality of languages, cultures, religions, I think it is helpful for finding solutions today if we remember what happened.
So we can say that diplomats or also future diplomats should read and write a lot with their diplomatic
They should read and write, and they should develop the right passion for the things that they are doing. I took it always from this combination of the practical diplomatic work and working also with students. I did every year, for instance, in Krakow for a long time, a summer school on Central Europe. With a lot of Ukrainians and other people from other countries on the issue of how can we overcome now, long time after the end of the Iron Curtain, how can we still overcome this mental divide in Europe? So you may say this is university academic work, but actually it's diplomatic work. You work towards developing good solutions in the international relations.
And I think especially those kind of things are not written in theoretical books, academic books. So it's really important that you share this passion also with aspiring diplomats. But I want to move on to another question, to a more personal one, because also despite achieving success in your career, you managed also a success in your personal life. Because I had the pleasure of meeting Madame Brix, and it's remarkable that you managed to have success in both. My question as an aspiring diplomat also is, what's the key to this success, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, I'm not sure my wife would agree that this is a success. I hope she does. There is no recipe for this, but some things work out sometimes. For instance, my wife and I share a lot of academic interests. We studied both English literature and history. So that's certainly helpful if you have common interests. And then I always said, and she wanted this, to have your own career. So if you have a partner as a diplomat, make it possible that he or she has her own career, and that is very important. And what's partly also necessary is on both sides to have enough tolerance in the activities and that your partner does and you do. And if you are a diplomat, you need a lot of tolerance from your partner, because this is a profession which sometimes is 24/7 and can lead you on trips. If it's shuttle diplomacy or simply getting reserves for the storage you need at home, many different things happen in the life of a diplomat, and for that you need the tolerance of your partner.
I appreciate that guidance, and I will take this to my mind. But now, as we look ahead, you currently hold the position of director at the Diplomatic Academy in Vienna. Are there some plans for the future, maybe beyond this position? And the last question would be on a more reflective note. If you were to write a book about your life, what would be the title?
Well, plans for the future, it's very easy. My plans for the future are to work in the international field. I've done this all my life so far, and this may mean working in academic capacities or working in political capacities, but the task is so huge that we have at the moment in these turbulent times that we live in. I intend to participate and contribute, if possible, in that. Memoirs, I won't write. I have to say, I appreciate that American, British diplomats are very good at memoir writing, but I have also the examples of German and Austrian diplomats, and I don't remember memoirs which I thought worth reading a second time. So I'm a bit hesitant to join them in writing memoirs. But you know, as a diplomat, also when you write on other topics, you use a lot of your experiences. You try to bring it into it, because if you want to, well, share what you did with other people, then it's, on the one hand, you need to have the study background, you need to have the theoretical experience and theories, but you also need to put in this personal touch into all the things that you do. I can't compare myself with a climate activist, but look at what climate activists, how many of them are university people, certainly in the political field, where they try to analyze things. Climate researchers try to give data, but at the same time, many of them are activists. And this sort of combination, if it's clear when you are an activist and when you are an academic, is something I think which is important, that you make clear the difference, but you try to understand that both sides are necessary. So no title for my memoirs because I don't write them.
Understand. I'm very unfortunate. Ambassador Brix, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your memories.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.